So me and my dad were having a conversation about a week ago, and it detailed mortality in a way. He called me out to the living room and said to me, if me and your mom ever so happen to go before you, that we will want you to live near family. Mind you, I'd accepted death at a very young age. I think I was probably like 12, 13 years old when I accepted death, and I only have so much time to exist. But I didn't come at it from perspective. Like, when people say I accepted death, they usually think that, oh, I'm suicidal and all this shit. If anything, it gives me an opportunity to learn more, to experience more, to grind harder than I ever have. But I didn't think my dad had accepted that we're all meant to die at some point. And the literal reality of the conversation at the end of it, mind you, it lasted 60 seconds of that. But the conversation literally quite drove him to tears. But this has intrigued me to talk about some crazy shit that I've been experiencing. Just my own personal thoughts that I've been experiencing for the last 2 months that provoked me to step away from making videos and that stuff. I allow for you guys. I would much appreciate it if you guys can hear me out and allow me to be open and honest about what I'm about to talk about. I have to come clean. It's time for us to have a conversation. I'm more or less closer to some kind of edge every single day. Whether it be burnout, an episode of intense stress, or a flat out meltdown, I can't really differentiate what I'm feeling between the three. And that's the shit that is fucking scaring me more than anything else. Before we continue on, I did not make this video to gain sympathy from people. While this video took over a month of preparation and the recordings happened across multiple different weeks and multiple different takes, and I knew the responses when I published this was going to be just a little bit mixed. If my job was to make videos and do nothing else, trust me, this is a career piece that I could see myself doing for the next decade if I want to. Any individual video is just another individual video. Some are more easier, some are more draining, some take more effort, like this vid I'm making right now to you guys. But this is the cool part about doing YouTube. I can dwell in the moment, at least for a time, and then it's off my chest and I don't have to worry about this. So I'm just trying to say that every now and then you may get a moment like that out of me, but soon enough I will be back to my old self again, eventually. But this needs to be said. I'm sad, I'm tired, I'm bitter, I'm angry, I'm emotionally broken. And I've been holding these emotions in for months, if not years at this point. Because let's be honest, that's what you're supposed to do growing up in a lower class neighborhood in New York City. Especially being black. You're not supposed to talk about anyone or anything that bothers you, bruh. Bringing this shit to the limelight and bringing people and other attributes and other situations into this that other people have done, this shit is just going to make the problem worse, and it's going to breed unnecessary drama. Life is just one toxic ass motherfucker filled with adversity, and you got to deal with that shit, bro. There's no way out. However, I will say I'm more closer to having a breakdown just due to the stress, the gossip going on behind the scenes, and the bile continually burning into me. And I have no outlet to express these emotions. well, no direct outlets other than YouTube. With emotions and feelings like this, they may dwell for a while and eventually they'll break out free somehow. You may douse it and dilute it with hedonism in the moment. If you're stressed, you may drink alcohol, smoke weed, eat lots of food, be gluttonous, or at worst, you may get irritable in your own daily life. Or, even more insidious, it starts to seep in your personal interactions with other people. A prime example of this would be my senior year of high school. And niggas around me know that this happened. We all know this because we can't forget this, because no one will ever let us forget that this ever happened. I will remember these shitty ass moments until the day that I eventually die. And it's going to be a story that strangers will tell to my grandchildren at some point. I know that people will immediately scoff at me for saying that what I do is reason to take this long of a break. But it is. School is something that I go to on a consistent basis, and it's something that I do with the intention of graduating and getting a good paying job from it. When you think about it, it is by definition a job, or at least something that ultimately leads to a job. I can go into a long-winded session about everything that this quote-unquote job entails and what I've done in the past few months away from YouTube, but let's be realistic here. Some of the minor details are boring. Bro, fuck that shit. What am I talking about? Most of the minor details are boring, my nigga. Me going to school is boring. Me sitting in front of a classroom and hearing a lecture going on for about 40 minutes to an hour 30, possibly even 2 hours, is boring. And I am a part of a research group, but from my knowledge, doing research on a particular issue is tediously boring, although you see some positive effects in the end. So I might as well talk about the not so boring aspects of my life. The type of shit that makes me wish that I lived a normal, somewhat boring life. Because, you see, one part of my life is turning the other cheek and not saying anything when niggas shit talk you. No matter how often they do it, and no matter how harsh and unwarranted it gets. Even if dozens of people are doing it. Even if it's your own... Even if dozens of people are doing it. Even if it's your own family at points. Even if it's your own family at times. The proper protocol that you're faced with time and time again is to just ignore it. But I'm only a human being, and there's only so much bullshit that I can ignore. I was originally intending on making this video a my problems with modern society video, like every YouTuber for some reason. Like every underground YouTuber is doing for some reason, because life has gone so bad to the point that people are making videos calling how fucking corrupt this society and the government is. But motherfuckers have limits to free speech. Motherfuckers have limits to a lot of things, as we all come to know. The best advice that I can give is to sit down, one-on-one, heart-to-heart talk, and I hope and pray that someone out there validates my excuses, and I hope someone out there validates me as a person and understands what I'm trying to get at. I need to get things off my chest and off of my mind, because see, I have a reasonable fear of being talked badly by one political party outside of it, while being lambasted by another political party within it, as in not appealing to anybody's specific tastes or needs. I'm not going to go into specific detail about whoever may be doing this, because one, I actually respect people's privacy for one, and secondly, that would be wrong. Saying that you hate this person and what they do to the point where you want to see them fail is wrong. I tried to ignore this bullshit for months, years even. I'm glad my parents were smart enough to pull me out of the decision that I was about to make. Had I went through with that decision, I am hyper aware that if somebody takes a shit in my direction, I will be told about it repeatedly. I'm really getting sick and tired of motherfuckers coming up to me and saying, hey, you know this motherfucker that you never heard of is shit talking you, my nigga? It gets old fast. It gets exhausting fast. It gets depressing fast. Gotten tired of dealing with multiple motherfuckers a day talking about this or that person is talking shit about me. Some freshman who just enrolled into the fucking school that I was at a month ago. Let me give a warm piece of advice to startups just getting into high school or college or moving up in the real world. And lo and behold, 75 to 80% of people, hell, scratch that, maybe 95% of people are that. People who are new and experienced as being in high school, college, or grad school, or any social environment. Never say anything that you don't want people to hear. Because eventually, they will hear it. They'll probably hear it in real life too, but on the internet, it's inevitable. I think it's probably one of those golden rules of the internet. The people who are saying this bullshit to me, talking about, oh, I gotta get back or some shit, I don't know what these niggas are expecting. Maybe they're expecting me to beat somebody else or give a verbal smackdown or something that could put me in a jail cell. Which it's not going to happen. It doesn't happen, and it's probably not going to happen in the future. Usually it's forced with the implication. Usually it's forced and coupled in with the implication, aren't you going to defend yourself? I tend to ignore this because even though this is not about defending me specifically. Despite having my name, my face, or my image attached to it or whatever, this shit is not about defending me specifically. Just the entire cesspool or community as a whole, whatever that means. But beyond that, there's a leader of the group that's usually talking to an audience. Their own friend group. Their own audience. And that's probably the best case scenario. Sometimes they'll be trying to troll and talk to, say, my audience, for instance. Sometimes they'll be trolling and try to talk to, say, my audience, for instance. And yes, when I make a video critiquing NBA players or critiquing franchises or critiquing any sort of moves by a GM or an organization, I'm usually talking to my audience, not the person. And yes, I'm usually talking to my audience, not the company directly. Here's the thing. I don't mind if those executives or coaches or whatever, the people who watch the NBA and are part of the NBA or any professional sports league in general, end up seeing my videos, even more scathing ones. If they eventually get around to seeing my videos, well, that's great. I would say exactly to them what I said about their product directly to their face. Sometimes it feels like those commentators or influencers or whatever are taking a video from someone so small that they don't have to deal with retaliation without the defense of, taking accountability and punching up. It's not always the case, but it still does happen. At a certain point, you become a person. At a certain point, you become an unshakable pillar or a person that is locked away in an ivory tower. It would be like me saying something about the works of Michael Jackson, Freddie Mercury, or Elvis Presley. They're each more successful than I ever will be, and they have been established names in the entertainment business for more than half a century. I could say my own subjective opinions about their work, and not too many people have a problem with that. However, on the other hand, if I joke about someone else's suicide to the point where it's actually disrespectful, like Robin Williams or Anthony Bourdain, I would be a fucking asshole. And yes, if you were wondering, I thoroughly enjoy the works of all five of these people very well. And Robin Williams and Anthony Bourdain are severely underrated in their respective fields. You can also add Whitney Houston or Minnie Riperton to the people who have developed me into a musically inclined person. It's very easy to get caught up in losing sight of the humanity of people that you see online, especially when the upper echelons of social media and YouTube especially become more sanitized and corporate over time due to everything that has transpired over the last several weeks. But when you start doing this, when you forget that there is a person under that work, when you see people beyond their work, you will have the exact same problem that I had at my worst when I made my worst mistakes. Mind you, I'm not saying that I'm making the exact same mistakes, but this is the footnote, the bedrock to what caused some of those mistakes. The reason why I did some of the worst things that I've ever done in my life thus far is that I forgot there was humanity behind the person. All of a sudden it became okay to say these things because this is a person that I know will never exist in my own personal life past high school. And other people will feel privy or okay with doing this shit. I am speaking to you from a person who has been there. Trust me, I know the feeling. I've been there. You just have to garner the strength to forgive people and move on. If not, it's going to end up badly for you and everybody affected or involved. I've seen people come and go out of my own life. I've been fighting my own personal demons for about a decade now. And each of these people come with their own varying level of toxicity. I tend to gloss over this and ignore this and not get too mad because it's the same damn story every single time. At some point in the future, they will eventually reveal this. At a certain point in time, they will eventually reveal themselves as a flawed human being, and they will become the next Shane Dawson, the next EDP, or whatever the fuck their channel or audience is watching them rant on. And they will become teared limb from limb, cannibalized. I've seen it time and time again, and from this vantage point, since 2022, it wasn't even a spectacle anymore. However, the response and the gap and the division seems to be getting bigger. Nah, actually, that's not it at all. It's coming from people within my own personal life and within my own field. Do you want to know what one of the most painful experiences I've ever felt is? There's nothing more painful than being ignored or hurt by someone that you used to admire. Or even worse, someone that you still do admire. Someone that you enjoy the work or presence of. I have to face the reality that there are people in my own personal life who I love, that I've grown attachments to, that I have followed, who do not like me or the person that I am becoming. People that have inspired me and continue to inspire me to push forward day after day. It's one thing when it's a general troll or stranger that seems embittered with their own life and has no more prospects in life than to take it out on other people. But when it's a person that you truly invested time into for years, it's a feeling that's almost indescribable. But I feel the grift has been happening a lot more and more as time goes on. I'm aware that within the next few months, I will slide or have slidden into the realm of acceptable target. Obviously, these people are not doing this because they know me personally. After all, there's a few people past high school that I've ever talked to personally. And it's okay for them to do this because I'm no longer just a face in the crowd. If anything, I am a peer. And their audience and all their niggas love it. That's why they have a tendency to fuck with this person, because as much as people want to admit it, it's not me in some spectacular fashion. Now, if this was my own thoughts, I would end it and just leave it here. But this has been a moment for introspection. It's the obvious thing to do, to look in the mirror and see all your flaws and look inwards. I don't know if it's because I'm polite or that I'm mentally ill and take things far more personally than I should. But when someone sends bullshit and vitriol my way, I look inside myself and see what the actual problems are and how I can improve. And it's just a never-ending spiral that leads me nowhere. One of my favorite complaints is that your editing is shit. This has filled up so many complaint-filled rants within other people who have watched my content. Some were made within the last couple of weeks, here in 2025. And yes, my editing was shit. But I'm getting better and purchasing new technology to make my videos as high-tech as possible. I know that if someone decides to unsubscribe and leave, by definition, they're not keeping up with my content. But when you're criticizing the person that I used to be, or the person that I was a year or so ago, it makes me less inclined to hear your opinion as a whole. Oh, he's chronically online. The last post I made was back in July, or even more than that, back in April when I was talking about the Kyron Lacey situation. Oh, he posts on Snapchat a lot. 10 months since I made any post on Snapchat not relating to content, or probably that even longer. And as I stated before, all of these events have taken place months apart. Oh, he's politically driven. And now we're getting into the span of years and the future of my life. I have to pay for my sins. I have to live with my mistakes. I understand this. They are a part of me. However, the only conclusion that I can surmise when people are criticizing me for things that I apologize, deleted, and moved on from is that they have no actual desire to see me improve. It's one thing if you're picking apart a video with no context. If I made a terrible video a million years ago, fine, you're free to criticize it and call that video bad. But when you take a video from so long ago to say that I'm a bad person and a bad content creator now, I literally cannot use or trust your criticism. I mean, what do you expect me to say to that kind of shit? 2019 me takes your advice in stride and he will do the best that he can to improve. Congratulations, we got in the circle. This, more than anything right now, has affected me so much in the present to where it's become a constant anxiety for me. I constantly fear that I'm going to run into someone. We're going to have a friendship or a nice relationship. And then they're going to uncover about another shitty thing I've done in the past. And they'll never want to speak to me again. This is an anxiety for me because this has happened to me before. I can't change the past. I understand this. My actions are all that I am. What I did, I will always have did. What I've been, I will always have been. But I want to be a better person than that. I think that I am a better person. And I believe in myself that I am slowly finding my way upward. Slowly but surely. It has been repeatedly proven to me that I can't erase the past. Even say deleting a video doesn't work because I know they will eventually crop back up. Even though I've gone as far as to damage another individual's reputation. Seriously though, anything that has been deleted of me will be back up. Do you know that you can find me commenting on the Skate 3 live stream back in the spring of 2021? That live stream that is on another YouTuber's channel that has been completely rebranded since then, that had no more than 700 subscribers in its height, and had no more than 10,000 views on any video. If that shit can come back. Anything I put up now, I'm hyper aware, it is permanent. It is part of the eternal tapestry that is my life. And me deleting any particular video does send a message. One can take it as me apologizing and moving on, or as a bitter attempt to try and clean up or hide what I've done in the past. Mind you, this isn't the only thing that has provoked me from returning to YouTube. My mind is fucked up while recording this late at night, so these points may seem disoriented in order. I want to have an opportunity to harp on this Charlie Kirk thing, just to give a brief opinion and just what I think people need to realize about our society. The entire situation was horrific. Even ignoring what Charlie Kirk said in the past or what he did as a person, it still was a horrific tragedy that should have never happened. What people don't realize and tend to forget is that this man had a future. Whether that future be divorcing from his wife, whether that future be the streets, whether that future be prison, whether that future be the president, you gotta recognize that a young man has lost his life, his entire future, and now he can never get it back. In some ways, the news can keep us informed about the most up-to-date whatever. And I hear people say, oh, there's so much negativity going on in the news. Why is NBC talking about the Charlie Kirk situation? Talking about Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon or Stephen Colbert or whatever. Talking about Trump's big beautiful bill or the school shooting that happened a week ago. Every news station I ever heard of is talking about this particular issue at this time. Why are all the popular ones doing this? I'm going to hit you with a depressing fact. This is how society works. You don't get popular by telling a positive story or leaking about a venue to a neighborhood to party or share cultures. Even though that is informative, people don't come to hear the positive. When it comes to the big boys, you have to realize that this is their job. If a news station wants to remain relevant, they have to talk about what's new, hot, and trending, no matter if it's positive or negative. Otherwise, they will fade away. It doesn't matter the medium. If a food critic goes after old restaurants, he's going to be bested and outmatched by the food critic who goes after new restaurant openings. If a critic specializes in the television vineyard and talks about old school shows, he's going to be eventually outmatched and bested by the critic who goes after new shows. And soon, you're gonna hear all the popular critics talking about the newer TV shows. And this is where money comes into play. There's this large stigma around YouTubers that say, oh, you shouldn't do this for the money, that any new and rising YouTuber shouldn't do this for the money. Allow me to play that game in another medium, if you will. Imagine for a moment that nobody can make money off public television. Everybody kept their dignity and did it solely for the art. In fact, you have to give up money and buy expensive television equipment and art supplies. Then you don't get companies like Disney. You don't get companies like Fox. You don't get companies like ABC, NBC, CBS. You don't get non-profit organizations like PBS, who despite their recent failings, have all worked as hard as they can to push the medium forward. They, by design, couldn't exist. If nobody was making money off YouTube, for instance, nearly 100% of this website would be niggas talking to a shitty webcam in a dark room. And the website would proceed to go creatively bankrupt faster than what it is going creatively bankrupt right now. I need to spend more time looking up tutorials on YouTube so I can fix my shitty editing, remember? And to buy more equipment. And even in a minimalist setup like mine, I'm recording this in my bedroom, I need a good PC, and I need to maintain that PC. I need a keyboard, a webcam, a microphone, a pop filter, and a good editing program. I need CapCut or Adobe, or not to mention, I would need OBS Studio if I want to do any live streaming content. To keep going, I'm probably going to need my own website or hard drive with unlimited space for uploading. Once you want to vlog and get kind of fancy, a decent camera is going to cost you money. Hell, a shitty camera is going to cost you money. And any camera is going to have to need a tripod at some point. I'm not going to jump to the jury and say that I make content and make these videos for money. And I'm not going to level that accusation at any of my friends or anybody who's coming into this field. Merely the opposite. What I'm saying is for people to keep going, or for people to get motivated to make more content on a consistent basis for people or fans of their work, they have to make money. And making money means risking creative integrity and talking about the newest popular thing that's out there or doing the latest trend. When you don't do that, it can be seen as lost business opportunity. In a way, sports fandom sucks in the same way that every other community sucks. You know, like how the NBA is going to talk about off-season moves, or talk about the GOAT debate, or talk about a player's game during the season, or talk about ring culture and all that shit. Unless they are a niche, like a large portion of the community. A niche will talk about the ABA. A niche will talk about players like Artis Gilmore, Julius Erving, George McGinnis, Zelmo Beatty, the like. Maybe go back to the 50s and talk about Slater Martin, George Mikan, Chuck Cooper, Nat Sweetwater Clifton, or any other player from that era. Cousy, Pettit, Robertson, Chamberlain, Russell. Those are popular choices that is popular to help people know the foundation of NBA history. But a niche, by definition, doesn't get the same audience size. You can't complain when the most popular person on the platform is talking about the latest whatever or doing the latest whatever. Because almost by definition, that's 9 times out of 10 is what makes them the biggest. YouTube has encouraged many naive users to water down their content to the point where it feels like a father talking down to a group of neglectful teenagers and expecting them to take their opinion and heed their opinion and take their opinion to the point that no matter what they say, it's facts. And so many content creators will be tempted by social media to even go as far as to live a fake life and add filler. I don't do this, per se. I hope not. But I understand why some people do. An argument that tends to rise from this is that we're all given the same opinion about a certain topic, or we're voicing our cries to fan outrage, ignoring the fact that me and many others have went through probably the most tumultuous pandemic, or one of the most tumultuous pandemics of the 21st century, or of the millennium, or probably ever. A strong excuse and reason for this is they usually say that art and opinions are subjective, but there's usually a large amount of consensus on things. Most people will unanimously agree that Michael Jordan or LeBron James is the greatest player of all time. You may get 2 or 3 other alternatives, but those players are considered to be on the Mount Rushmore of NBA immortality. When talking about politics, you may see the Democrats as progressive, socially upheaving, and pushing forward towards new concepts in the future and open to opinion. On the other hand, you see Republicans as open to opinion, but believes in family tradition and a set of values. On one hand, when it comes to politics, you may see the Democrats as progressive, forward-thinking, open to opinions, and open to new ideas that will possibly enhance society. When it comes to the Republicans, you may think that keeping family values and traditions is the way to go. A popular opinion, by definition, is one that most people have. And when you're constantly giving off unpopular opinions every single time, even if they are 100% truthful and 100% earnest, laced with good intentions, you start to come off as a troll, because that's the toxicity that American culture has spread at large. Face it, if I voiced my full opinion on Charlie Kirk, and that is the first video that I've ever released, you may think that I was A, trying to be a troll, or B, trying to be edgy. Even this far in, people still think I'm trying to be edgy. Having an unpopular opinion is something that you have to earn the right to if you want people to take you seriously. Similar to how you have to act a certain way, dress a certain way, look a certain way, or think a certain way for people to take you seriously. And that is sad. Which probably leads me to one of the biggest criticisms that I get, that I care too much and I take things too seriously. Has it happened? Even I'll say yes. I'll throw out the entirety of my senior year right off the bat. I am a guilty culprit when it comes to taking things too seriously on occasion. But a lot of this criticism comes from people who think that you aren't supposed to take anything seriously when it comes to your own creative endeavors. The deflections I usually get is that you're not going to make it, you're not worth shit, what are you doing, you're wasting your time, etc., etc., etc. This can be its own video, and at some point it will be. But I understand that media and entertainment have a vast effect on people's lives. I have an understanding that media can change people's lives. After all, 2 artists, Fred Hammond and Donnie McClurkin, 2 artists that are gospel artists and are sacred and preach about the Word of God on a consistent basis, did change mine. And you can give as much credit to the SoundCloud era. I understand that media can affect people's lives. If you even want to go beyond me, despite the fact that Cuties is Despite the fact that Cuties is reprehensible and disgusting in so many ways, I later gone on to find out and understand that it has helped some people find their sexuality or a specific kink. Not to defend the movie, what they did is fucking deplorable and no one should try this shit, but it is, on some level, important to some people. It's just a small example. When a person like Markiplier can make thousands of people weep openly and simultaneously all at once, when DMX can pray over an entire crowd of 5 to 10,000 people, when people like Pastor Mitchell can make people break down and cry and rethink their entire life, I know that there's something that is more vital and fundamental to our entertainment than something to just pass the time. But y'all niggas, y'all don't want to take this seriously. Everybody should just ignore it. Okay, fine, whatever. Let's talk about what a person in entertainment actually does. First of all, a large chunk of people who work in the entertainment business are forced to follow First of all, a good chunk of people who work in entertainment are forced to follow a lead with no creative input, doing exactly what they're told or getting fired. But let's say you break in. You're in the entertainment But let's say you break in. You're a major part of the entertainment and television vineyard, and well known. You're a famous actor, animator, artist, whatever. Then you need to give up the intellectual property and creative integrity to a network or a studio or company that's going to rewrite the vision, cut it short with no rhyme or reason or explanation, or keep it going years after you came up with it. Even then, they'll also openly lie to you and cut major graphs to make sure deadlines get done on time, exhausting countless amounts of animators. They'll even lie to you openly and maintain strict deadlines in order to make sure that everything is done on time, which will exhaust a lot of animators and executives. Then years later, they'll take it and reboot it without your consent. Your creative masterpiece will then be beaten out by something incredibly corporate, and the existence of your name or product will be entirely dependent on how many toys the company can sell. For an athlete, it works the same way. You're programmed to be limited to what you can and can't do, and if years later down the line, if you get injured, that injury lingers with you, and you'll eventually get outbeat and replaced by someone younger. And the existence of your name will be entirely dependent on how many jerseys the company can sell with you. And if you have the opportunity to get really, really, really big, like Ted Turner, Michael Jordan, or Hanna-Barbera, then your name becomes a brand. You should shout mediocre cash-in products. If you have the nerve to speak shit about your studio or company, you will be heavily reprimanded. Therefore, most likely, you will become anonymous. You won't own any of your drawings. However, you need to make stuff as cheap as possible to make sure the studio doesn't outsource over to South Korea. And even I know what happened with Diddy isn't the most rare thing in the world. Even the people who have risen to the ranks don't get a break. Joe Louis, Elgin Baylor, and Muhammad Ali were each excommunicated for their participation or lack thereof in wanting to get involved in fighting in the war, all within a decade apart from each other. And their excommunication was because they were black instead of being white. However, on the other hand, Ted Williams, who was white and an MLB legend, when departing the league to fight in World War II, was heavily praised and revered and seen as America's war hero. Actors like Judy Garland, River Phoenix, and Jonathan Brandis were each taken advantage of in one small way or another. Athletes like Chris Henry and Junior Seau were treated as pawns rather than seen as regular people. Anybody who spoke up to Harvey Weinstein, James Franco, or Dan Snyder were frequently given the middle finger. DSNA Entertainment is a K-pop industry known for their exploitative behavior, sexually harassing minors in the K-pop industry, something a little less more marketable and commercialized over here in the States. And not to mention the whole white on black brutality crime that is happening with my race. Even going down the line from George Stinney and Emmett Till to Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd. And we're just a month removed from Trey Reed, who on campus was not only murdered, but hung in a racist act of white supremacy. And not to mention, if you open up about any of this, you will be berated by the company, your network, and it will damage your future career prospects. I suppose you can go independent, but you will need more time than it already exists. Between going to school, having an actual paying job, and other legal litigations. You have two choices, really. Post something beautiful and rarely ever gets seen from 6 months to a year until the internet algorithms kill you. Or you could post some minimalistic bullshit that keeps up with trends of the internet every couple of weeks to get somewhere and get noticed. The current state of American culture is in a horrifying place right now. And I know firsthand because I take what I do in everything that I do. And I know firsthand because I take what I do in anything and everything that I do seriously. But I guess it's worth going through hell and back fighting demons for about a decade to be told that what you do isn't meant to be taken seriously. That your family is the only outlet to speak to. And even that is not a reasonable possibility because they tend to get into gossip. That you're only meant to get a 9-to-5 job. That you're only meant to live a minimalistic life. That what you do isn't worth the time, effort, or critical thought you put into it. I take what I do seriously, and I will not apologize for the mere fact that at any point. With all the bullshit that I've gone through over the last few years, I believe I deserve some type of respect from somebody. I believe I deserve to be taken seriously. True, at some points I can take things too seriously. Opinions and nitpicks will arise. But keep in mind, just because I tend not to associate or dabble with people doesn't mean it's a white or black issue. I tend not to associate myself with certain people not because they're white or black. I tend not to associate with people because they have a screw loose or two and would rather get into conflict or trouble rather than actually have reasonable dialogue and conversation. And what I definitely don't do is stereotypically categorize or stereotype an entire race of people just because they're too bougie or too rich or too ghetto. And I feel like I'm going to lose a vast majority of people with that statement. The scripts I've written for music and television over the last 2-3 years have been devoted to me diving into these ideas. That is because I became extremely paranoid that people are waiting and preying on my downfall. People are genuinely waiting for me to screw up. Anybody that knows me knows that I have a truly deep relationship with God that has been instilled to me from my parents and my grandparents and any strong family member of my family since I was very young. I also have heavy ties to a research group that helps with the underlying problems and economic problems of New York State. It honestly feels like people are waiting for me to make a misstep in anything creative that I do. And me growing up in the church, I went consistently for every Sunday. I can count the number of times I smoked or drank on one hand. But I'm a hypocrite because I have a knack for swearing too much. Or anyone of any denomination, from any race, for that matter, in public. Scripts that I've written over the last several months to the past couple of years have been devoted to me exploring into a multitude of these ideas. This is because I became extremely aware that people are preying on my downfall and are almost waiting for me to screw up. It is clear to some extent that I'm a Christian and I have my own Christian walk, and it is clear to some people that I am a Christian and develop my own walk with God. And in the process of sanctification, you're not expected to be perfect. You're expected to live a life that is somewhat wholesome. And it feels like so many people are waiting for me to make a misstep in anything creative that I do. Oh my God, everything that you literally said ever means nothing because you slip up and made a mistake during orientation. As an example to my own life, I was heavily involved in Christianity for 15 years before the pandemic hit. Both sides of my family had many prominent figures in my life that are strong male and female figures alike. Many pastors, deacons, choir directors, and the like have come from both sides of my family. Me having both parents in my life really taught me the ups and downs of life. Me having both parents in my life is a positive because I basically got the best of both worlds. I was lucky and fortunate enough to have both parents in my life because I got the best of both worlds and was taught right from wrong at an early age. Me having both parents in my life was a plus because it taught me a lot about the world from both perspectives and what to do and knowing right from wrong at a very early age. If I can recall, I haven't drank alcohol or smoked weed until I was maybe 17 years old? And I could probably count the times that I have ever done so on less than this hand right here. Probably less than 5 times. But I'm a hypocrite because what I say or do doesn't line up with Scripture. Although there are multiple accounts of prophets who were murderers and adulterers, and you're basically comparing apples to oranges. I don't want to bog down this video with too many specific examples because I can truly go on forever and there'll be plenty of time to talk about it in another video if need be. But let me state an undisputable fact. I've never judged a pastor or a Christian or a man of God or anyone of any race, denomination, or gender publicly. Yes, I can watch a clip of a sermon or watch a YouTube video about people who preach the gospel and I can make my opinions known, but I never go out publicly to discredit or attack anybody, whether seen as good or bad. The point of being a Christian is to live a wholesome life, to not get caught up in drama and try to help as many people as possible to tell the truth and to love them for who they are. And if something is financially corrupting religion and the church, it is very rare that I will ever go after it. I've only done that once in a lost video or a scrap video that I did a couple months back talking about the prosperity gospel and the Laughing Revival because it told false information. That was a very special case and the only time that I've ever done such a thing. I think it's imperative and important for people to remember that I am harsh on my own self as other people are on the personality of others. But during your Christian walk, you're not supposed to come out gold immediately. You're supposed to read scriptures consistently and try to live as close to a wholesome life as possible. And when I was coming back to church in 2022, 2023, I was going to church, listening to sermons online, and reading the Bible chapter by chapter. Because that, more than anything, kept me motivated, seeing my own progress, for a time anyway. And because Christians be Christians, they treat one mistake like it's your entire destiny. Nah, fuck that. Actually, they treat one mistake like it's the difference between you going to heaven or hell. To me, what I have dealt with within the last several months is disgusting and probably makes me not want to come to church as much. For example, a drug addict will try their hardest to get better and be on certain programs and go to AA meetings and be on 30-day programs just to try to get better and relapse the day they get back out. And he'll or she'll go confess to a church and try to get clean and have people pray for her. And they basically discourage that. And they call that drug addicts trash for having that struggle. To me, that's reprehensible. To me, certain situations, however, over the last several months make me more worried to the point where I do not want to come to church as much because of how self-entitled and belligerent people have become. To paint a perfect picture of what I'm experiencing, let's use Juice WRLD for an example. Juice WRLD was an artist who openly talked about his feelings and his opinions of drugs. Not necessarily to glorify it, but to express his true feelings on how the drugs were affecting him. And it was very evident to me that Juice was crying out for something greater that can overtake his drug addiction, and for him to live his life and be accustomed to it and embrace a new lifestyle. But early on, he admitted he had problems, and nobody realized it until he died. And church people scolded him for basically admitting that he had that struggle. To me, that's disgusting behavior. That is truly reprehensible, because I don't think that's what God will want us to do. It was very apparent that Juice was really suffering and was brutally honest with how drugs had affected him and ruined his life up until he died. I know this is going to seem like random, but let me cook for a little minute though. I'm trying to tie this all back into my main point here. You know, this TikTok therapists who go around to people's houses and discipline kids for their bad behaviors and being disrespectful to their parents and just cursing them out, calling them bitches and doing all this shit. I don't know his name. It's escaping me, but I think I can. The prison doctor who goes around across America and disciplines these young kids to change their ways and basically grow up and realize that their actions have consequences. And he is brutally honest about what he experienced and said that his one dumb decision that he made years ago cost him a majority of his life. He spent the majority of his life in prison, and things changed around him that he never got to experience and truly grieve over. The fact of his father passing away, that is some stuff that he never got over, and he wish he can relive those years and get those years back, but he can't. And it's almost as if a Christian or a pastor would say, you know what, I wouldn't look up to someone like that. You guys know the Beyond Scared Straight program, where you got these young kids who are doing bad things and get in trouble, and they get corrected, they get sent away to this concentration or boot camp or something, this prison correctional facility, and they get dealt with accordingly by gang members and inmates and ex-cons and drug addicts and all this other stuff. And they sit them down at a table and are very adamant and passionate about what they're saying, basically illustrating that please don't go through what I go through, because jail is the real deal. Like, I'm not sure if you're prepared or up for that kind of challenge, because this is not what you want. I'm telling you, bro. This is not what you want. You need to snap out of it, because this jail shit is not fun, bro. I'm telling you, bro. Like, you gotta knock it off. And it's almost as if a Christian or a pastor would go and say, you know what, I wouldn't look up to someone like that. Whoa, why the fuck wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Because who better? Who better than to steer somebody away from doing wrong than a person who has been to prison? Who better than to steer someone away from wrong who has been a convicted felon? Who better to steer someone away from wrong than a person who will look them straight in the face, who have been through it, who have been through the struggle, and say, bro, little bro, calm the fuck down, because this is not what you want. That's why people who run AA meetings are former drug addicts. That's why people who run AA meetings are former alcoholics. That's why people who are part of the Beyond Scared Straight program are convicted drug addicts. They're criminals. They're felons. It's because they see the path that people are heading, and they don't want you to be a part of that life, and they want you to fix it before it's too late. There has been a lot of drug addicts in my family, past and present, but they didn't do it because it was cool. They did it because there was no other option to relieve of their anger and stress. But they were never trying to make me do drugs. They never tried to force me into getting into drugs. The people who were around me, the family members who were doing drugs, they hated drugs. They hated drugs more than I can ever hate drugs, because it ruined their life, and they even lost their own life. People who have been down that road have hated addiction in general more than any Christian can ever hate addiction. The situation at hand that I want to say is this. Although I can be a little bit more edgy and X-rated and all that stuff, do I want Jesus to be our idol? Of course. If everybody was to let Jesus take the wheel per se and let them lead their life, that will make the world a much better place. But I want Jesus to be a role model for different reasons. Jesus was the ultimate perfect example of what a human should be. Jesus was anti-racial, anti-divisive, anti-Semitic, Jesus was against anything that had anything to do with racism and division and all that. You know, it's crazy that we have this anti-rape culture, and there's women's equality and all these women's rights going around within the last several years. And the scriptures, according to the Bible, says if a woman is causing you to lust after her, to rip out your eye. To rip out your own eye. Not telling her to take off her clothes, not telling her to put on more clothes, not telling her to change an appearance about herself, but to rip out your own eye. Jesus was that kind of man. When a group of people who were supposedly Christians thrown a naked woman into the street after prostituting and having sex for money, he got on the man. He berated the man, and he told the lady, get up and sin no more. Jesus had a way with dealing with division and other races and people of other races and all this division and all this racism. Jesus literally spat on that. You need to remember that these artists and some of these rappers and some of these artists have emotions and feelings and thoughts they want to express passionately through their music. A lot of these artists have feelings and emotions and thoughts that they want to express through their music, and some of them didn't make it out. Some of them didn't win. Some of them died. But it doesn't erase the memory. It doesn't make those songs any less true. They're not hypocrites for that. Those songs were made that was in the middle of them suffering, in the middle of them struggling, but in the middle of their pain, they wrote those songs, and some of those songs are powerful. You cannot convince me that God was actively moving in their lives and wanted them to embrace this new lifestyle. You cannot tell me that these people are worth looking up to. You cannot tell me that these people are not worth looking up to had they been involved in some AA meeting or some counseling. That's just not true, bro. These people need help. These people are more in tune with their feelings and emotions than other Christians. These people have realized the path that society is heading in. And some Christians don't know anything about it. And what frustrates me is the fact that people can say all these things not being aware of the other person and their shortcomings, and put their foot in their mouths and sound so ignorant, and give such a horrible representation of what God can do and who God is. God can be in the middle of addiction, of any struggle, and he's not going to bat an eye. No matter if you've been doing it for 5 months or 30 years, he's not going to care. He's not going to bat an eye. He's not going to look down on you. Because the main objective is for making you his. He just wants you to come home. But he died for it. He died for you. Jesus doesn't look at your best moment and say, now you're worth dying for. Jesus looks at you when you did the most harmful and the unthinkable. When people are Jesus doesn't look at your best moment and say, now you're worth dying for. Jesus looks at you when you did the unthinkable, when you did bad things, Jesus doesn't look at you at your best moment and say you're worth dying for now. Jesus looks at you at your worst moment when you harmed yourself beyond comprehension, when you did the unthinkable, when you were afraid to tell anybody about your darkest, deepest secrets because they were too messed up. That's when Jesus looked at you and said that he was willing to die for you. To me, it's ridiculous that... To me, it's very fucked up and ridiculous to me that people can't rest in peace without their name being dragged through the mud when all they wanted to do is help. Yes, I will admit that there are some things that these people do, that celebrities do, that are somewhat inexcusable and reprehensible. I am very well aware that X was into Wicca and demon energy. Does it make him garbage as a person? No, I believe not. It may be too much for some people. It may be too much for me, but it doesn't define his career as a whole. I will admit that I have become a little bit more distant and isolated when it comes to talking to others. And a lot of that frustration is because I've been fighting and because I am tired. I will admit this, but you have to admit the fact that there has been a lot of well poisoning going on. When people take a political opinion of a friend that they know for years and use it as an excuse to say that the whole entire personality is garbage, It makes me less inclined to trust people or humanity in general. It's been over a year since I made myself available to people. Because people are expecting me to be some sort of drip master or have a lot of money in the bank or be some sort of a Christian as a first impression and not allowing me the space to grow. Even in my own research group, I've been doing my little side project or pitching my little side project about spreading awareness about sexual and domestic abuse. Yes, I can complain about things that don't matter, but when I do, it's things that are actually there in our society. Because I do my own research, let people speak for themselves, and have respect and due diligence. Yes, I screw up. It's inevitable. It happens to the best of us. But I try my damnedest not to. So when people are criticizing me for things I've done years ago and moved on from, criticizing me for things I've moved on from or I have improved, criticizing me because I'm the one doing it and they don't like me as a person, criticizing them because it's their own interpretation of a method that I use, or criticizing me because what I do is based off a faulty premise. The overall effect is that it becomes harder and harder to find a silver lining out of any of this. I know that there is improving that all of us can do. There's redemption for all of us. There's improvement. There is improvement that we as humans can do. Improving that I myself can do. And that's what allows me to reconnect with people eventually. And to the people who miss me over the last year and a half, just know that I haven't forgotten about you. And sooner or later, we will meet again. But more often than not, it falls on a tightrope, and under these desperate cries for help, time and time again, it becomes even more of a mistake each time. And there's only so much more bullshit that I can listen to before it all starts to beat down on my psyche. And maybe just upon hearing this shit, maybe it makes you laugh. Maybe it makes you feel sad for me. Trust me, I don't need any sympathy. But maybe it makes you smile. Maybe, just maybe, you're a fucking asshole. I don't know you. And I know that I don't know you. I'm getting to a stage of my life where I don't even recognize the people that I know from fucking middle school. I'll reiterate again. I don't know if someone in my life is going to walk because of something I said or I had an opinion that they don't like. Or in one case, one person said they couldn't associate with me anymore because of false information. Not just outdated, but outright false. And me not putting up with people who are bitter and jaded because they gossip too much when they should be worshiping and praising God. The people who have brought the Almighty Creator, who have brought them into this world so much that it's become too much of a distractant. And people who are bitter and jaded because they talk about gossip too much. And I was tired of hearing that associated in the church when we should be praising our Almighty Creator, to the point where I just excommunicated going to church altogether. I know that me having these problems and expressing myself on camera is showing signs of me being a bitch. I know that anything I said, if karma comes back to hit me tenfold, it's on me. You're a bleeding heart that needs to get the fuck off the internet and get the fuck out of America and get a life. I mean, after all, this is the internet of the 2020s. It's a toxic, divisive place, and if you complain of its toxicity and divisiveness, then you're a bleeding heart that needs to get the fuck off the internet and get a life. It doesn't matter if you have a job there. You have family members who will get involved and get pissed off and get some random doxer or some jackass and get pissed off and end up committing suicide all over it because they tend to forget that there is a person on the other side of the screen. Here on the internet, we give graphic death threats to people for fun, and then we lynch anyone in. But who am I kidding? It's the 21st century internet. But that's the internet of the 2020s. It's a toxic and divisive place, and if you ever complain that it's a toxic and divisive place, you're a bleeding heart that needs to get the fuck off the internet and get a life. It doesn't matter if you have a job or have family there and would get pissed off because they tend to forget that there's a person on the other side of the screen. Here on the internet, we give graphic death threats to people for fun, and then we lynch anybody who may not think this is the most pleasant behavior. That's the internet for you. That's how it works, and that's how it will always work. Until people can get fed up with this bullshit and decide that suicide and all this censorship shit after Charlie Kirk is the better option. You're not supposed to open up about stuff that has been done to you in your personal life or on the internet because ignoring the problem makes it go away. Or better yet, if you're a religious person, you can just pray it away yourself. I was told this all my life and it hasn't worked out yet. Anytime I try to ignore and pray for my enemies, they've ramped up their abuse. Just like you ignore a little sister who was annoying you, she will try harder and harder to annoy you. Just like you ignore people on the internet, they will try harder and harder and use extreme measures to get a rise out of you. Just like if you ignore trolls on the internet, they will try harder and harder and use extreme measures to get a rise out of you, to the point they will eventually start doxing you and doing things with those docs. If you ignore cyber stalkers, they will try harder and harder to become infinitely more deranged. I don't know why it happens, but it's just how people work. We're long beyond the era of people wanting an explanation, response, or a redemption arc. I know people will want to vent. Others have personal issues. And a lot of the times, people just need something or a deep desire for something to relieve themselves from all the stress that they get faced with or presented with on a daily basis. And even at times, what I feel or what I do is ultimately irrelevant to the entire equation. Case in point. At the end of the day, you have to remember that most of us that make content on the internet got forced into doing this. No one plans on making this their internet job. I mean, yes, you can create top 10 videos or get a little tag team of writers like Defunct Land or The Game Theorists and just raking the views, but I'm talking about an actual solo personality. You post things and an audience likes what you do. And rarely is it ever what you want to do with your life in the first place. I myself have been in the sports field and was an athlete for many years, playing multiple different sports. And now I'm planning on starting up a music career alongside doing YouTube and dabbling a bit into politics. And one of the main things for people to remember is that being on YouTube or any internet forum or platform is a constant learning experience that you have to master. And so far there has been no books or tutorials on this. The shit that we're doing is constantly improv. And when you're improv, you're slated to make mistakes. But you eventually grow and develop. You can see my whole entire life since 2021 on the internet in one small form or another. And most people tend to forget that the fourth dimension or the fourth wall is a real thing. And the shit goes beyond it just happening to people on the screen. It happens to people in real life. People change and evolve over time. That could be for the good, that could be for the bad, that could be frightening, sad, happy, angry, exhaustion. Whether the future be the streets, prison, the president, a rap career or a music career, a self-made entrepreneur, a millionaire, an astronaut, a firefighter, a policeman, a teacher. For better or worse, people do change. You have to remember that, unlike content of the media of old, most of what you see in the modern online age and on the internet is done by one person or a group of four at most, or a very small team. People are valuable and people are vulnerable and fallible. And they can have hard days just like the rest of us. A lot of the worst stuff that I ever did was due to stress or burnout. You know, the expectation to release something or do something different and trying to break free from the constant cycle of pain because you've grown accustomed to it for so long to the point where that's what people expect or want from you. It would be easy to say walk away from it all and just take a break. But sometimes a lot of YouTubers don't get that luxury. I know that in the next few months or years, a lot of what I say here probably isn't going to matter. At a certain point in the future, nobody's going to realize anything I said or did or anything I ever done for the matter. At this point, I will have faded fully into the background. Just like many other YouTube greats that have gone away over time. The internet erodes fast and it's constantly changing. A lot of people are just trying to live through life and trying to make ends meet one way or another. The crux of our jokes that we base off the people were affected in many horrible ways. But I guess the one important thing to remember in all this is that no one has an easy life. And I think it would be wise for us all to remember that.